But first, breaking tonight, a previously classified document is shedding more light on the origins of the Trump-Russia probe. Republicans assert the newly released annex to Special Counsel John Durham's report shows that the Clinton campaign sought to discredit then-candidate Trump in 2016 by tying him to Russia. The Senate Judiciary Committee making these documents public for the first time just hours ago, with Chairman Chuck Grassley decrying what he calls, quote, one of the biggest political scandals and cover-ups in American history. Correspondent David Spont has details tonight. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia narrative began in 2019 and ended in 2023 with a 300-page report. But for the first time, we're now seeing what is a declassified annex nearly 30 pages. The overall theme? Well, more examples of the Clinton campaign's alleged efforts to discredit then-candidate Trump in the run-up to the 2016 election. We're looking for the first time at emails believed to be from a man named Leonard with the Open Society Foundation, tied to liberal philanthropist George Soros. We're told that Durham received the emails originally hacked by Russian intelligence. Now, according to this annex, Leonard writes about a Clinton campaign advisor named Julianne, also referred to as Julie and Julia. Quote, Julie says it will be a long-term affair to demonize Putin and Trump. Now it is good for a post-convection bounce. Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire. In another email, Leonard allegedly wrote, HRC, meaning Hillary Clinton, approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level. Now, Durham interviewed Julie, who says she didn't draft or recall receiving the Leonard emails. The annex goes on to explain the FBI was fully alerted to the possibility that at least some of the information it received about the Trump campaign might have origins with the Clinton campaign or Russian disinformation. But the FBI dismissed the information, quote, as not credible without any investigative steps actually having been taken to either corroborate or disprove the allegations. The White House hours ago, Brett, pouncing on this news.
This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it.
The report also critical of President Obama's national security team, specifically CIA Director John Brennan.
I stand ready to continue to talk about the assessment and what we did during that period of time. There was absolutely no conspiracy, and we continue to stand behind what it is that we have said publicly.
Attorney General Pam Bondi, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and FBI Director Kash Patel, all behind declassifying today's annex. No comment, though, to Fox from those mentioned in the actual document. Brett.
David, we're also learning about a new whistleblower shedding light on the Trump-Russia narrative. What about that?
Well, Brett, this is the same topic, but it's not part of the Durham annex. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard says her team recently heard from a whistleblower in the intel community who claims they tried to sound the alarm on, quote, manipulated intelligence tying candidate Trump to Russia, but the whistleblower's bosses just would not listen. Attorney General Pam Bondi has a strike force looking at all kinds of information relating to the Trump-Russia narrative. Brett.
All right, David, thank you. We'll talk about it with the panel in just a minute.
It was all effort of total distraction and to make it look like Russia was playing a very major role in helping Trump to be elected.
I have testified repeatedly over the years consistently about what we did to expose Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Senator Grassley releasing that Durham annex, putting out this statement. The Durham annex describes that in July 2016, the FBI received additional intelligence regarding a possible Clinton campaign plan, including documents with purported emails allegedly sent by Leonard Bernardo, senior vice president of Soros's Open Society Foundations. The intelligence included data providing specificity on the plan and the attempt to smear then-candidate Donald Trump by falsely linking him to Russia. We're going to bring in the panel early. Trey Gowdy, former congressman from South Carolina, host of the Sunday Night in America with Trey Gowdy, and Fox News contributors Leslie Marshall and Byron York. Byron, there are a lot of pieces that come out in this, and we piece them together. We do stories on them. They don't break through in a lot of other places. But if you're at the whiteboard and you're looking at what came out today, why is it important, and what does it tell us?
Well, I think it's important because it shows the degree to which the Clinton campaign played an important role in creating this whole Trump-Russia narrative. Not only that Russia tried to meddle in the U.S. election, but that it did so to help Donald Trump win win the presidency. And it really focuses on a few days in July of 2016. July 22nd, it was the Friday before the Democratic convention was going to start on Monday. That's when the hacked emails are published. They're embarrassing to a lot of Democrats. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, chairman of the party, has to resign. On Sunday, Robbie Moog, the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton, goes on the Sunday shows and says, Russia did this, not that unusual, and then he said, Russia did it to help Donald Trump win the presidency. That was unusual. New York Times actually writes a story about it saying the Clinton campaign is going to make this a theme of their campaign going forward. And what we see is in the next couple of days after that, July 25th, July 27th, there are these letters between somebody at the George Soros Foundation, all those Republicans who think Soros is a big villain, well, they'll be confirmed in this one, talking to members of the Hillary Clinton campaign about whether this is going to be a big deal going forward.
Yeah. Leslie, you know, pieces of this come out, and I know Democrats say, you know, it's all to take the focus away from the Epstein documents, all of that. But if you look at, to Byron's point, to July 27, 2016, from Leonard Bernardo in the Durham Annex, it says, HRC approved Julia's idea about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email. I mean, some of these things just hit you in the face. And at some point, somebody has to say something.
Yeah, but here's the problem. A lot was said in the intel reports between 2017 and 2020. And specifically, they said that there was, in fact, Russian interference and that it was aimed specifically at damaging Clinton and boosting Trump. And by the way, there's video, numerous pieces of video of the President Trump, saying that, not to boost her and to boost him and to damage her, but that there was Russian interference. We then have the Durham investigation. What were his findings? FBI didn't handle this right. They botched things up. Does not recommend anybody be, handcuffed and, arrested. And if that's the case where we're at, if we're taking what Tulsi Gabbard and other people on the right are saying, the inference they're making, the allegations that they're making, specifically about Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, I don't see the handcuffs here. We don't have a definitive amount of evidence. We have a lot of things that are redacted, and then we have testimony, and then we have people with, first names and no last names, and we have no judicial proceedings on this. Let's bring it to the court if this is the case.
But this is classified stuff, Trey. So they are declassifying it, including this annex that came out, and they are revealing it from a classified place that no one would have ever seen it.
Yeah, some of us who wrote that 2017 report certainly would have liked to have had that. In fact, Brett, we would have liked it so much, we actually asked the FBI for it. Devin Nunes sent a subpoena to the FBI. The one name that has not come up tonight so far is Chris Wray. We did not go from Jim Comey to Kash Patel. We had an FBI director named Chris Wray, and Congress repeatedly asked him for all the information you have on the Hillary Clinton email investigation and the Russia investigation. And what Durham put in his annex and what Kash Patel found in those burn bags, Chris Wray never bothered to turn over to Congress. So yes, those reports may be missing something because the FBI aided and abetted the DNC. The fact that Jim Comey wanted Hillary Clinton to win the White House, I'm telling you, Brett, he has done generational damage to the Bureau.
All right, here is Congressman Trey Gowdy, May 2017. Take a listen.
Did you have evidence of a connection between the Trump campaign and Russian state actors?
As I said, Mr. Gowdy, I don't do evidence. And we were uncovering information and intelligence about interactions and contacts between U.S. persons and the Russians. And as we came upon that, we would share it with the Bureau.
Different haircut, but same pointed questions. Trey?
Yeah, and unfortunately for Brennan, the same allergy to the truth that he has now. He is allergic to the truth. He lied in that part of his testimony, and he lied about whether or not the dossier was used in court filings. The statute's wrong, but to Leslie's point, handcuffs are not the only way we mete out accountability in this culture. There's shame, there's history. It's not just prison. There are other ways we mete out accountability. And the fact that somebody's not wearing handcuffs does not, to me, think that what they did is okay, because it wasn't.
Byron, last word on this. You guys are going to come back later in the show, a couple other topics, but it is piecing together some of these things.
Absolutely. And the thing that I wanted to know more after reading the Durham Annex is what's going on with the FBI at that period in July that I was talking about earlier. Remember, just a few weeks earlier, on July 4th, James Comey had come out and given Hillary Clinton a get-out-of-jail-free card on the email matter. He basically spoke a long time about why he thought she was guilty, and then at the end said, and by the way, we're not going to charge her with anything. And you want to know, once the Clinton campaign settles on this Russia strategy, are there connections? Are there communications? What's going on with the FBI? By the way, we know the Clinton campaign funded the dossier. We know the FBI liked the dossier. They hired Christopher Steele over it. So when are they connected, and what are those connections?
Yeah. The reason we put the panel up here is because a lot of people say, things just go out into the ether and never get resolved. We're going to dig into this. We're going to dig into other items, and we're going to talk about other things later in the show. Panel, thanks so much.
The senior White House correspondent Peter Doocy is live from the briefing room. Peter, what can we expect to hear this afternoon?
Well, this is something that this president wants to talk a lot about, and this is going to be the first briefing since the president ordered these documents declassified that show Hillary Clinton herself in 2016 may have personally been involved, or at least personally blessed her team going forward with the Russia collusion narrative. So expect Caroline Leavitt to have something very strong to say about that off the top. Of course, we also have this issue of tariffs. We learned a few minutes ago that there's going to be a 90-day delay for negotiations with Mexico, because apparently things are just so complicated with the border right now. And we know that China has a deadline until August 12th. Scott Besson said this morning that they're making progress, but it's going slowly. Everybody else, though, has until midnight. And so based on what President Trump has been putting out publicly and what we've been hearing, he has been working the phone a lot with his trade negotiator, Jameson Greer, and they are trying to figure this all out up until the very last minute. Probably a late night here in the West Wing. Also, we would expect, this is the first briefing since this whole thing with American Eagle jeans blew up. I believe that the White House is going to have something to say about this Sydney Sweeney ad campaign dust-up, even though President Trump has not been seen in jeans or any kind of denim in decades. Back to you.
Peter Doocy, live for us in the White House. In the briefing room. Peter, thank you.
Yeah.
U.S. customer is the greatest buyer in the world, and Donald Trump understands how to harness that customer and show that customer to everybody and say, if you want to play in our sandbox, you've been treating us badly for years, come on and play.
That, of course, is the Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick on President Trump's America First economy. We could learn more about the president's looming deadline for these trade deals as we await that White House briefing. Charles Payne, host of Making Money on Fox Business. Jamie Dimon just gave an interview on the tariffs. He's saying so far so good. The trade deals have been coming in. Stock market's been all-time highs. I mean, this is a White House that clearly feels like and has been showing that they feel like they are leading on these issues.
They are leading on these issues, and I don't think anyone can deny that, right? I think the key, though, is how do we continue to lead? And I think this is the most important thing here. For instance, the GDP report. The headline was phenomenal, 3%, but there's nuances to it. The real GDP number, more like 1.2%. Incrementally, sequentially, it's starting to slow a little bit, and that's, I think, the central issue with respect to the Federal Reserve. Their policies are in place to tamp down on the economy. That's what they're trying to do, but they have to be very careful that they don't take this amazing lead that we have and tamp down, because there's a big portion, the majority of this economy, people are still living paycheck to paycheck.
It's interesting to talk about the headline there. The White House briefs as Trump trade deadline approaches, Charles. It seems to me like when it comes to tariffs that Trump has enough of the big players in the bank to be able to stand firm on the rest of them.
Absolutely. The EU is a huge, the unmitigated, even the most severe cases of TD, Trump derangement syndrome, even they snapped out of it for a minute. Golly, he got one, and then they went back to talk about something. Mexico, the pause today, that was big. Canada, they're negotiating. Maybe they go up on August 1st. And we always knew China would be last. But the EU was a huge stroke. South Korea last night. He's got a lot of these in the bank. What I think was, here's the most important thing, I think, and Sandra, it alludes to what you, it goes back to what you're saying with the stock market and the economy. When this started, when this whole thing started, Wall Street was saying, okay, maybe we end up at 10%. If Trump would have come out and said, we want to do 20% on Japan at the very beginning, Wall Street would have said, it will never work. The market's going to crash. Instead, you start crazy high with these numbers, the reciprocal numbers that blow everyone away, and you settle at numbers, though, that would have been unacceptable to those countries and Wall Street just a few months ago. Instead, everyone's applauding them.
Yeah.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
It's called Art of the Deal. I'll send you a copy.
There you go.
I know you have one. It's probably all rabbit here. You haven't looked at it in a while.
Oh, so as far as the Federal Reserve is concerned, because they're looking at, and cover the Wall Street Journal today, economy returns to growth. To your point, there are enough economic stats out there that say things are shaping up and they are looking pretty good. President Trump, however, who was He took to Jerome Powell again in that tweet this morning. He did not mince words when he went after Powell for not lowering interest rates. So why not remove him? I mean, the president can put somebody else in that chair. Kevin Hassett joined us yesterday, and he is a top contender for that role. We asked him about it. Listen. So, do you want the job?
Well, first I want to say that it's not an apprentice-style contest. The president is going to go through an orderly search process led by Secretary Bessent, Kevin Warsh.
If you were the Federal Reserve Chair and you were in that decision-making position at 2 o'clock, what would you do?
If I were managing a meeting, I'd ask everybody to talk about, well, why are we now like the big outlier on earth at interest rates? What is it that makes you think that that's what we ought to do?
He compared our monetary policy to what's happened all over the world, and we're just not keeping up. So.
Right. There's a inflation surprise index around the world, and our inflation surprises have dropped. We have the lowest inflation surprises of any nation on the planet. And so inflation has been moving in the right direction. Again, what I'm more concerned about, particularly with aggregate data, you got to be very careful with aggregate data because it's misleading. Wealthy folks in this country are doing so extraordinarily well that they can mask, and they have been masking, middle-class people who are struggling. And again, if the Fed wants to be restrictive, they want to keep the vice grip on this economy. Those who are paying the price for it are already paying the price. Their credit card bills have already gone up. Their delinquencies have already gone up. And all you're doing is squeezing them even more. Home ownership, fading. It's a fading dream. You're squeezing that part of the economy more and more, and we're going to wait for, I hope we don't have to wait for rich people, to say ouch, because that may mean the rest of the nation, the other 70% of this country, is buried.
You've been on that for a long time now.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of fascinates me because the Axios headline this morning was Trump claims the economy for better or worse, goes on to say there are signs the economy is weakening. I mean, everybody is trying to knock down this economy or caveat the economy in some capacity. It gets harder and harder as the numbers improve.
Yeah, but again, the GDP number is made up of several components, right? And we know the import-export is really was skewed. Some initially businesses trying to get ahead of the tariffs, and then we saw the biggest decline in imports in history over the last couple of months. So those things are skewed. You got to knock that noise out. I think you listen to the people out there, and most Americans would tell you, listen, things could be better, right? And so why do we need to make it worse before the Federal Reserve sees the light? They've got more PhDs than any agency in this country. They have to know. They have to understand the nuances of what's happening in this economy. And if you look at the stuff they're afraid of this morning, for instance, we had personal income and consumption. We had some, areas where people were buying things. Maybe you could see some clothing, for instance, maybe some inflation there. But look at autos. The sales were down dramatically. Yeah. And that means that, no, you can't willy-nilly pass on costs. Otherwise, GM wouldn't be losing $1 billion. Ford wouldn't be losing $1 billion.
All fair points, Charles. Are you a buy on the stock market at these levels, by the way? We're still near record highs.
I'm an individual stock buyer, and I think the fourth industrial revolution, if you're not buying these names, look at Meta today, look at Microsoft today, look at Roblox today, look at this market, look at the names that are going to shape our lives for the next decade. It's a shame. If you don't own them, you're making a huge mistake. There won't be another window like this for another 50 to 100 years.
Got it. Charles, good to see you.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
See
a
you
lot.
at 2
Thank you, Charles.
See you, man.
John Brennan and James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence under President Obama, hitting back at these claims by the Trump administration. Here's some more.
President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
Brennan and Clapper writing in the New York Times that this is, quote, the calculated distortion of intelligence by administration officials, notably Gabbard and CIA Director John Ratcliffe. We find it deeply regrettable that the administration continues to perpetuate the fictitious narrative that Russia did not interfere in the 2016 election. So with that, we bring in Fox News Sunday anchor Shannon Bream. Shannon, great to have you with us. You know, it's very interesting how this the framing of this discussion has changed over these years, because what we're hearing now from Brennan and the rest is, you know, that it was all about whether or not Russia was making efforts to try to influence the U.S. election. And they say, well, we established that although they may have tried through hacking and leaking, they weren't successful and they didn't change any votes on any election machines. But that is not what this was about. You know, so how are you reading what the narrative that they're trying to put out now compared with what they were saying then?
Yeah, you're exactly right, because just about everybody agrees Russia was trying to do some kind of meddling. So when you go to that point, you're not making a point. I think there's just bipartisan agreement about that. But the conversation has changed about whether there was hacking. We heard people using the word hacking, and whether or not they relied in the intelligence community assessment on things like the Steele dossier. That's what they're still fighting about. In that piece you referenced by Brennan and Clapper today, they say they didn't rely on it and that it's false for people to keep saying that they did. But remember the documents we got just days ago from DNI Tulsi Gabbard. She unveiled what had been under lock and key, an assessment from 2020 from the House Intel Committee, and they have a couple of really interesting things that we pulled. First of all, they said that they contradict the director of the CIA about the use of the dossier. It was referenced in the body of that assessment. It was also in the annex. It also outlines a disagreement that two CIA senior officials had with then Director Brennan. They went to him and said, this thing does not have the hallmarks of meeting what we would ascertain needs to be done for our tradecraft. And he said to them, yeah, but it rings true, doesn't it? And so that's all out there, you know, in contrast to that op-ed today.
And that's when he, you know, suggested, according to these reports, just use the dossier. Just throw it in there too, because you know when you put it all together into the soup, it'll ring true as you talk about. And here's a headline back from August of 2018 from John Brennan in the New York Times, no longer CIA director at the time, but the title: President Trump's claims of no collusion are hogwash. Now, this is the other thing that they seem to be leaving out now, Shannon. You know, they're talking about Russia. They're talking about whether or not they knew Russia was trying to interfere, blah, 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 in many cases. But what they're leaving out is that they argued time and again that Trump was in collusion with this foreign entity, an enemy country, in order to influence this election. And that part, they're just kind of pretending never existed at this point.
Yeah, and that's a completely, as you said, different lane. I mean, that's a different conversation.
Totally.
They keep also referencing what we got out of the bipartisan Senate Intel Committee report signed off on by then acting chairman Marco Rubio. He's talked about this now as Secretary of State. They talk about that report, but remember what that report said also. Now Secretary Rubio, then Senator, when he released that report, he said, we can say without hesitation the committee found absolutely no evidence that then candidate Donald Trump or his campaign colluded with the Russian government to meddle in the 2016 election. That was in 2020. And they, in that same report, Rubio went on to say, we did find some really sketchy behavior by the FBI and their reliance on the Steele dossier. So if they want to cite to that Senate report, folks should know there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, just one last thing here. They chose not to give a defensive briefing to candidate Trump at the time. Now, if they had, some of this would have, you know, he would have rebutted this. He would have said, no, what? You know, that's not what's happening. Thanks very much for bringing this to my attention. But they didn't want to provide, it appears, the opportunity for him to rebut any of this because they wanted to keep sort of, hanging ornaments on this Christmas tree that they were trying to build.
Yeah, and that investigation, the assessment was building, it was going on. And we've also found out while they were doing that, they were not only not telling him about certain things, they were leaving out information that had come to them, including a close confidant of Putin who had come to them and said that he has made clear he has no preference in this election. And so information was left out, information didn't get to people, and it left an opportunity lost for people to maybe rebut some of those things.
Yeah, well, we will see what comes out. More to come. Thank you so much, Shannon. Great to see you. Shannon Bream.
All right, so I want to get to some breaking news right now in this Russia matter that started 10 years ago in Washington, D.C. At the moment, newly declassified documents have been made public. These are from the Durham report. How much additional light will be learned about the origins of the Trump-Russia investigation is something we are trying to find out. Republican Senator Chuck Grassley is here. He chairs the Senate Judiciary Committee. And Senator, thank you for your time today. I want to know what you learned. I just want our audience to know that apparently, based on my reading of it, these documents were stored in an annex. I don't know where that is or who oversees it. And they were being kept in burn bags, which I assume is material that's set to be incinerated. What's the truth? What's happening? What did you see in the documents?
Well, you see, you're bringing attention to the burn bag to me for the first time, and I'll leave that up to the FBI to describe, but I think it's evidence of the great depth that the deep state will go to cover up weaponization that was going on in the FBI and the executive branch of government generally under the Obama administration. And I want to thank Kash Patel of the FBI and Pan Bondi, our Attorney General, for releasing these documents, because after 8 years, and it took us 3 years to get this information, but after 8 years, I think we need maximum transparency on all the schemes that were going on 10 years ago to either stop Trump from being elected or after he was elected to ruin his presidency. And that's what this Durham report is all about. And it gives information that Comey FBI had 10 years ago that they never followed up on. And it actually brings attention to the fact that there was either a Clinton conspiracy to make this happen, or a Russian disinformation. But either way, it was an attempt to stop Trump, and it also proves that the FBI had a hand in it. And now, after these 8 years, 3 years of my trying to get the document, we know that there was the Steele dossier paid for by the Democrats and the Clinton campaign, that it was all effort of total distraction and to make it look like Russia was playing a very major role in helping Trump to be elected. And now we know none of that was true. And now with this Durham report annex out, it finally proves that the FBI was covering up.
Wow. Okay, here is what we've got from a source with Fox Digital. Let me go ahead and read this statement. It just came in. Ultimately, the release of the classified annex will lend more credibility to the assertion that there was a coordinated plan inside the U.S. government to help the Clinton campaign stir up controversy connecting Trump to Russia. You essentially just said that, Senator. That's what I heard from your answer. Sir, is there a smoking gun in this?
Well, I think the smoking gun kind of dovetails in with things that Tulsi Gabbard has put out in the recent 2 weeks, and things that we had with the Crossfire Hurricane Index that I released a couple weeks ago. Kind of all dovetails into the same thing, but it gets back to the fact that whether you have a Republican or Democrat administration, that there's cover-up, and we shouldn't have it. Transparency, or the public's business ought to be public, and what the FBI does ought to be public as long as their investigations are done. Or if they aren't investigating, if they aren't doing their job, then it should be exposed, and this Durham annex exposes that.
Okay, So John Brennan and James Clapper tried to get ahead of this story because they've got an op-ed already today in the New York Times. The headline reads, "Let's set the record straight on Russia in 2016." And underneath it says, "We find it deeply regrettable the administration continues to perpetuate the fictitious narrative that Russia did not interfere in the 2016 election." They say the focus should instead be on the fact that Russia routinely meddles in our national elections. What would you say to those two men today?
I think that they have been in the news so often recently, and along with Comey, of trying to information out that they've been in the center of all this conspiracy, that they're trying to cover their hind end. That's all I can say about that.
One last question. There's a headline now at foxnews.com that George Soros has a connection in these documents. Do you know of that? Is that true?
No, I don't, but I can find that out for you, and I'll be glad to get back to you with an answer on that.
Okay. Senator, thank you. We will see very soon what you have found.
Thank you.
Chuck
Goodbye.
Grassley, thank you for your time.
Fox News correspondent David Spunt is in Washington with the latest. David.
Well, hey, Will, Special Counsel John Durham's investigation into the origins of the Trump-Russia narrative began in 2019 and ended in 2023 with a 300-page document. Today, we're getting a look at the newly declassified annex to the report. It's just 29 pages, and it was released for the first time hours ago. It discusses more allegations about the Clinton campaign's efforts to discredit Trump, the Clinton campaign's alleged efforts, I should say. Now, we're looking for the first time at an email from a man named Leonard with the Open Society Foundation. Will, that's a society tied to George Soros. According to the annex, Leonard writes about a Clinton campaign advisor and says that HRC, meaning Hillary Clinton, approved Julia's ideas about Trump and Russian hackers hampering U.S. elections. That should distract people from her own missing email, especially if the affair goes to the Olympic level, end quote. Now, a source close to the annex says that Durham obtained these Leonard emails via the intelligence community who intercepted them from Russian intelligence. The annex goes on to explain the FBI was fully alerted to the possibility that at least some of the information it received about the Trump campaign in 2016 might have origins with the Clinton campaign or Russian disinformation, but dismissed the information, quote, as not credible, without any investigative steps actually having been taken to either corroborate or disprove the allegations, end quote. The report also critical of President Obama's national security team, specifically then CIA Director John Brennan, who once again defended himself moments after the report was released today. Watch.
I stand ready to continue to talk about the assessment and what we did during that period of time. There was absolutely no conspiracy, and we continue to stand behind what it is that we have said publicly.
Attorney General Pam Bondi, FBI Director Kash Patel, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, all behind declassifying this annex so we can read it. Will, we did reach out to those mentioned in this unclassified or declassified report today, I should say, but we've yet to hear back. Will?
Okay, thank you for this important report, David Spunt.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.